We are live. Hi, everyone. Welcome. We're just going to take a few minutes and let a few people get on, and I'm going to take a couple of seconds here and make sure I can see the Facebook messages here so that I can watch when people make comments. If you're watching us live, please say hi. If you're watching this as a replay later, please do hashtag replay so we can contact and say hello to you too, because we would love to do that. So you should be able to see us there, and I don't see the comment stream yet. It'll come up here somewhere or other in a minute. All right. There we go. All right. Everything is working. I think technologically we are good today. Yay. Yeah. All right. It's lovely to be here, and we welcome you all. We're so glad you're joining us for this masterclass on Say No to Make Room for Yes. We have had a lot of experience doing this ourselves. We've had to learn this, and we wanted to share some of this experience because we know that you can take the wins and avoid some of the losses and help you to be who you want to be with a lot less bumps and holes along your road. This program is really what has helped us become who we are today, and we're just really excited to be sharing it with you. I'm Linda Easthouse, and my co-coach is Cheryl Hanna, and we're delighted to share this with you. One of the things that has really stood out for us is that we see on Facebook and in our world around us just so many people who share very similar stories, so many women who are going through many of the same things that we are going through and have been through. So we really want to connect and share that with you. And I have to tell you, burnout was kind of my big issue. For Cheryl, it was something else, and she's going to tell you that in just a minute. But 18 years ago, my family and I moved from Peru to Canada because we had been working in Peru for 16 years in a nonprofit. My kids were born and raised down there. The project was coming to an end, and both of our boys had some health issues and some learning issues, and we thought we'd get more help in Canada. We thought this is a good time to make a transition. We'll get them a lot of educational help, we'll get them a lot of health help, and life will get easier. Well, we left Peru. We were exhausted. We finished a monstrous program. We had gone through lots of interesting times there. That was back in the days when Shining Path was an issue in Peru and terrorism was a big issue, and life had been pretty tough the last few years that we were in Peru. And so we were thinking, oh, going to Canada is going to be so much easier. Well, we got to Canada and it was anything but easier. It was horrendous. Our kids hated us for 5 years because we had brought them to this frozen, as they say, hellhole of a place and taken them from where they really wanted to be. You know, I could understand their philosophy. The weather and the people were extremely cold in comparison to what we had been used to. Through this whole transition, they were in major culture shock. I think we were in culture shock as well. I mean, we hadn't lived in North America for close to 20 years, and things were very different. And to make it worse, I was still working full time. So was my husband. And the bureaucracy to put kids into school and to get into the health system and to do all those things that we thought were going to make things better were enough to make me tear my hair out. And then the job that I had, I continued to work for the nonprofit, and I was supervising projects in Asia and Africa and South America. And I was often gone for a month at a time supervising projects. I'd be gone for a month, home for a month, gone for a month. And when I was home, I was working in the office and preparing for the next trip and dealing with kids who were not doing okay. And it got to the point where I was literally not functioning. I wasn't sleeping. I was gaining weight. I was angry. I was everything that I didn't want to be. I didn't call it burnout, but my doctor suggested that maybe I should think about doing a little less because I was probably a little burnt out and maybe needed a change. And I told her, no, I'll be fine. I'll get over it. It's just, a little culture shock. We'll get through this. Well, I think she was right. It took me about 5 years to get through that. And although on the outside I looked pretty together and happy, on the inside it was anything but that. And it took me 5 years of, thank heavens, I learned about natural bioenergetics and had a wonderful person to work with. And I began taking classes and had wonderful teachers to work with. And I met some coaches who were very, very helpful. And together, we kind of put my life back together on a different basis. And I am today because of the help that I got through these programs. And so putting them together, it just makes so much sense to me. So Cheryl, tell us your story.
Well, I was a homeschool mother of 12 children. I still had 7 of them living at home. And in 2006, when I was 2005, when I was 44 years old, I had a heart attack. I had a baby that was only 5 months old. And the following year, I decided that I didn't want to die on the hill of homeschooling. It was just getting too much for me. And my husband didn't seem to notice that I'd had a heart attack because my workload never changed. So in the fall of 2006, I put my children that were still going to school into the school system. And 2 weeks into the school system, my marriage blew up. My ex-husband was rather abusive, and I caught him trying to strangle yet another child. So I decided that I'd had enough of that nonsense, trying to defend my children from their own dad. So I got rid of him. And then 3 weeks later, I was excommunicated from my church. So within the space of 5 weeks, I'd stopped being a mother. I'd stopped being a homeschooler. My marriage was gone, so I was no longer a wife, and then I was no longer a member of a major community that was a support to me. They all disappeared. So my life I was flattened. It was like the human equivalent of 9/11. So I was very fortunate at the time that I'd had some training in energy therapies, and that actually provided me a way to start earning income, because I'd spent 26 years being out of the workforce, and I had all the skills needed to pour coffee, but working at Tim Hortons was not going to provide enough income to support us all. And my ex-husband was not providing any child support. So through this type of work, I was fortunate to start taking some training in natural bioenergetics, actually with Linda. She was one of my first teachers. And this work helped me put my life together. And one of the reasons that we've developed this program called Reclaim Your Life is because we know from our own experience how fast this type of work can help you get your life back on track and help you become functional again, especially when you're facing really difficult challenges. So,
as you can see, we have been through some of the difficult challenges and things that many women face. And we're here to say there is hope, there is a way forward. There are ways to get through this without losing yourself. I'm sure many times, I know I felt like I had lost myself. I had no clue who I was or what I wanted or how to move forward, even though, as opposed to Cheryl, I had a very loving, supporting husband who was amazing. He was going through his own issues and his own culture shock and his own problems. And, it was just downright tough. And yet we have found there can be ways to change things and make them different. So we've put together this class just for you because we know that you can get through this. You can let go of all the issues. There is help. There is hope. And we want to share that with you.
This masterclass is about helping you know what to say yes to in order to push out the things that you don't want in your life. And as coaches, we're a little bit different than some of the typical coaches that you see out there, in that we know that if you fill your life with all the right things, the things that you don't want get pushed to the side. If you focus on what you want, everything else drops away. And there's a spiral of growth that takes place. A number of years ago, I read a book by Harriet Lerner Goldhor. It was called The Dance of Intimacy. And when I was working through all my changes, and I didn't know who I was anymore because all of my identifying markers were taken away, I basically had to rebuild my identity from the ground up. And so one of the things I learned about was something called the dance of intimacy. And what happens in that dance is when we are starting to move into a different direction and we're starting to change and to develop in a new way that's more congruent with who we should be, very often the people who are around us, they don't like it. And so what they'll do is they act up. So let's suppose you don't like the way things are going between you and your partner, and you decide that you want to be a little bit more independent while still in the relationship. The partner may act up and push back because they know how to do the dance the way that you were before. And here you've gone and changed the rules without asking their permission. And they want you to go back because they know how to do the old dance. But this new dance that you're trying to do, they don't like it. They don't know how the steps go. They don't know how to relate to you. So sometimes making positive change can be quite chaotic and can cause a little bit of upset in people's lives. But the goal is not to create a whole lot of upset. The goal is to make this a win-win proposition. You win and they win, especially if you can grow together. But just recognize not everybody is going to be willing to make the change. I don't know if you've ever heard of something called the crab pot syndrome. But apparently, if you take a whole bunch of crabs and you throw them in a pot together, if one of those crabs tries to climb out, the other crabs will grab a hold of them and pull them back in. And sometimes it can feel like that with your family and your friends. When you're starting to develop and grow, they may want to pull you back into what they know and they're comfortable with. And so our program is designed to help you move through the transition, help you cope with their discomfort with where you're going, and yet help you be true to yourself as you make the needed changes.
And when you get to that place, that's what we call maturity. Maturity is where you are able to be yourself, do what you want to do, and work with those around you in an appropriate way and know when to say, no, I'm not going back into the old dance. I'm moving forward. If you don't want to come with me, well, that's your choice. And so sometimes maturity can be difficult, but it's something we really, really want to develop and want to get to. It's sort of the goal of being an adult. And here we are at, well over what would be considered an adult, still working on maturity, and probably will always be working on it. But at any rate, what does it look like when somebody gets to maturity? So when they get to maturity, they begin to take responsibility for their actions and they stop blaming others.
They're also not going to keep on evading responsibility. That's something that kids do.
And they will frequently change residences, jobs, life goals, even spouses or partners. This is because now that they accept things which are really right for them, rather than the things that they were supposed to be or what their family wanted them to be, if the others aren't willing to come with them, then they will make the changes necessary regardless.
At the same time, you might find yourself becoming more tolerant to others or outside events, and you find things don't stress you as much because you have a better perspective on life.
On the other hand, you'll also become less tolerant. You'll become less tolerant to accepting pressure and doing things because other people forcing you to or want you to do or want you to become something. So you will become less tolerant to others having control over you.
The other thing a mature person does is they'll accept who they are, and that includes your shortcomings as well as your strengths.
And they learn to accept others for who they are and whatever their shortcomings and strengths are and not be triggered by that.
A person who is mature is somebody who knows how to express appreciation and feels it in their life.
They also learn to accept criticism and evaluate it properly. They can accept it without denial, without freaking out, without other non-adaptive behaviors, and accept what is beneficial out of it and let go of the rest without having a hissy fit over it.
A person who's mature is also able to step back from themselves and be more objective about who they are, but also about other people and events. They don't make stories anymore.
And they don't hang on to the adverse feelings and situations that they find themselves in. Of course, they will feel the frustration and the anger briefly, but then they're able to let it go and forget about it and move on. The past doesn't hold them in the same way.
A mature person is somebody who's internally connected to themselves and aware of what's going on inside them instead of blocking things out.
They also become much more aware of their environment and how that environment affects them. And so as their internal awareness grows and their external awareness grows, the power of that external environment on them is lowered. So those outside of them affect them less, and they're able to act out of the kindness and love and compassion that they have grown within themselves.
These sort of people are also available to, they're able to tolerate extremes better, and they adapt easily to whatever is happening they're able to roll with the punches instead of being knocked out by them.
So those are some of the things that we would love you to be able to experience as we work together. That's what a mature person is, and we hope we'll all get to that mature position. And as we grow and work towards that every day, those are some of the things that will happen in your life naturally by doing the work. So we want to give you a quick overview of what this week is going to be. Day one, today, we're going to talk about bringing your mind and your emotions into harmony so that a positive change is smoother and more permanent. We're going to show you a particular energy exercise that you can do that will help you with that. And we're going to begin to look at the role that the mind, the thinking, and the emotions and the values begin to play and how that comes together. On day two, we're going to look at how you maximize the results in your life, and we have another energy exercise for you there. On day three, we're going to talk about the capacity to handle the curveballs when life looks like it should fall apart, but you can handle the balls without it falling apart. We're going to talk another energy tool for you there and ways to really slide through things much more smoothly. Day four is a recap. We'll show you some steps forward. We'll give you a glimpse of what our program looks like, and we'll have some Q&A time, some questions and answers. We'll have a look at some of your homework. Each of these days, you will be given a homework assignment. You'll get it in an email right after the session tonight. So check your emails and get that. You'll want to have a look at it for tomorrow morning, get that done so that you can participate in that. Part of what you're going to do with that homework is if you do your homework each of the 3 days and you attend all of the 4 days and you share this with some of your friends, you can enter into a giveaway that we're doing to win a free 6-month coaching program with us. One of you is going to get a free coaching program by doing your homework, sharing this with at least 3 people, connecting with us in the Facebook group, and doing the homework, being involved, commenting, questioning, participating. The more you participate, the higher your chance of winning that free coaching program is. So don't forget to start that. Start sharing your friends right now too. Anyway, on to day one.
So today we're going to talk about what we call who is driving your bus. There's a principle that if you don't take action, people will act upon you. And when that happens, you're not living out of your own values. You're not actually determining the direction of your life. Instead, you're responding to things that maybe you grew up with, maybe your parents' values, maybe you hear your parents' voice in your head. Just a quick example of that was my mother was a very orderly, tidy person. And she was very particular about how she kept the house. And so when I went out and became an adult, I thought I had to keep my house exactly the same way, which is fine if you only have 1 or 2 children. But when I hit critical mass around child number 6, and eventually I posted a sign in my home that said, if you want to see me, drop in. If you want to see my house, make an appointment. So my parents' voices, some of the values that I grew up with, were not, when it came to my own life, some of those things didn't work for me, or they didn't work very well. Some of the other things that were influential on me were some of the training that I'd had, like in my church background, in terms of how I related to men, particularly my husband, or people who were called elders. So those values were ones that were placed upon me, that I was trained into by my background, but ultimately they didn't work for me. They were not practical. They did not create a happy outcome. And so I needed to change them. And so sometimes what will happen is you can end up living a double life, where on the outside you're conforming to these expectations that are put upon you, but inside you're going, this is not right and it's not working for me. And the stress between the inside and the outside can actually affect your life drastically, and even your health. So one example that I will see with a lot of women is that they may have a desire to lose weight, because we all know that if you carry too much weight, it's not good for you, and you don't feel good, you don't look good. But at the same time, a lot of women will feel really conflicted about losing that weight, because as soon as they lose the weight, now they have to deal with all this unwanted male attention. And so while they're on the outside, they say, yes, I'm trying to lose weight, on the inside they're going, no way. So
that happens in so many different situations, and that's just one example of those kinds of things. Think about the voices in the community that tell you what you can and can't do. And right now, given our social situation, there's a lot of people who would like to police the community and tell you what you can and can't do. And there's a lot of external pressures put on you that may drive you to do things you don't want to do. And there's also the whole aspect of the social media and advertising world, who put out very specific images of what it's okay to be, and what it's okay to look like, and what it's okay to do. And if you don't meet that norm, if you don't meet that society's expectation, then there's a lot of pushback on you. And yet internally you're going, no, this is not me. I don't like this. I don't want to do it. And you create all this conflict going on. And one of the big ones that I saw, because we work with a nonprofit, is what the role of the religious background and the faith traditions have on who's driving the bus and what you're allowed to do. And it's really, really important that we separate out those things and recognize that that is something that is being put upon us, rather than something that we have taken in internally and do because we want to do, because it's our choice to do. And yet many times, I know, and I'm pretty sure Cheryl is the same, at the beginning, we started out thinking it was what we wanted to do. Yeah. And as the years went by, and as the weight of it and the conflict of it expanded, then we realized, no, this is not okay. This is just everybody else's traditions and ideas being forced onto us, and it's not all right, and I'm not okay with it anymore. And yet for many years, we let those religious and community and social pressures decide what we could be and what we could do and what we could say and where we could go and what we could wear and all those kinds of things. And that's what we're talking about when we're saying who's driving your bus. Who's got the decision-making power for you, and who decides those things for you. And that's a big issue for many, many women, even women in their 50s and 60s and 70s. They've grown up in a culture where that is such a big deal. And now suddenly they're going, what? I don't buy this anymore. I don't want this anymore. And we really need to look at our intrinsic values, the things that we want, that make us happy, that make us feel important and satisfied and nurtured, versus those extrinsic pressures and expectations and obligations. We're going to talk a lot more about this over the week, but that is a really important thing to straighten out.
One of the things that we want to help you do is to identify what your core values are. A lot of us don't spend any time thinking about values. We just basically inherit our values, or they're trained into us, as I mentioned earlier. Rigid gender roles that don't work, especially like, I can remember being very specifically told this is a woman's job and this is a man's job, and you weren't allowed to do what the men were doing because you were a woman, just by virtue of your, reproductive equipment. And yet all of that stuff fell to the wayside when the head of my home was no longer in my life. All of a sudden I was allowed to do those things. And I was like, just a minute. Why couldn't I have done these things before? Like paying bills and controlling money and finances and stuff like that. So, and I'd never had just because that was my background, I'd never really stopped to think about, well, what are my actual values? So sometimes a crisis is one of the things that pushes us into looking at, what do I actually believe? And is this actually working for me and leading me into a way that is congruent with who I am, with my individual talents and abilities, and the things that are important to me? So examining your beliefs and looking at your values, which are your behavioral drivers, is one of the things that we're going to be examining in depth. Now, one of the things that you can do to determine what you really believe is to watch what you do. When I was going through all of my turmoil, I met this guy who was a real jerk in a lot of ways, but he gave me this really good piece of information and advice. He worked as an RCMP officer, and RCMP officers are trained to determine whether or not a person is telling the truth about what they're doing and what they're up to. And he said one of the key things that identifies where a person is really coming from is you don't listen to what they say, you watch what they do. Because what you do is actually the truth of what you actually believe. So one of the things that you might need to do for yourself is look at, what is it that I actually am doing? Because that's telling the tale of what I actually believe. So if you're going around telling everybody, I really want to lose weight, but every night you're sitting down in front of the TV with a bowl of potato chips, there's a problem there between what you're saying and what you're actually doing.
One of the big things that we talk about all the time in life in general, but throughout our program as well, is balance. And that is where we have our values and our beliefs together, where we have our thoughts and our actions together, where what we're doing is coherent and our emotions and our behaviors are in line with each other and make sense. And for many people, that is a tough situation to get to, and you have actually forgotten what it feels like to be in balance. They've forgotten what it feels like to really have that calm, peaceful interior where everything's working together. But one of the activities that we do, one of the energy exercises that we do that help people regain that sense, to help people to bring their energy into coherence and line up their thoughts and their feelings and their emotions and their body actions into one piece, is called a Thymus Tap. It's a very, very simple exercise, and we're going to teach it to you now. But before we do that, I want you to take a second and just quickly scan through your body and see how you feel. What's your temperature? How do your emotions feel? What's your mind doing? How do your muscles feel? Where's there tension? And just kind of take a snapshot of what you're feeling, what you're thinking, how you're reacting right now. And just take a second and scan through and get that. And now you're going to tap, and it's really simple. You take your hand, you put it over your thymus, and your thymus is that big bone underneath that big bone in the middle. If you go from your collarbone down, there's this big bone in the middle of your upper chest. That's your sternum. underneath your sternum is a little gland called the thymus. And the thymus is kind of your master immune gland. It's your master organizer that tells all the systems in your body how to work together. And it tends to go into hibernation when you're stressed. When you get into a stress position, it goes, okay, I'll just sit back here and get out of the way because I'm not interested in that. So it just goes into hibernation. It's like a computer, when you don't use it for a while, it goes into hibernation. And then you have to wake it up. Well, you wake it up by tapping the space bar. Well, we wake it up by tapping the sternum. So if you take your hand and put it across here, that's the measurement that you're going to use approximately. So the width of your hand is about the width of the circle that you want. You're going to take your right hand and put it on your left side, just like that, like you would to salute a flag or to whatever. And you're going to start from that side and go up and away. So you're tapping around in a circle about the width of your hand. You can use 2 or 3 fingers, and you want to tap fairly firmly and stay on that big bone and just tap round and round and round for 30 seconds to a minute, maybe a little bit more. And don't forget to breathe while you're doing it. You want to breathe. And what you're basically doing is telling Thymus, please wake up and get to work. I need everything coordinated. I need everything working together. Come out of hiding and get your job going again. And it will come out of hiding and start pulling your meridian energies together, start getting all the systems talking to each other again, and you'll be surprised what it can do. So just tap there 30 seconds to a minute. Make sure you're going from up and away in a nice circle, just about the width of your hand. And often you will sigh or have a deep breath or a yawn, and that tells you it's done. All those things are just indicators that your energy is shifting. So if you see us sighing or yawning or whatever, it just means energy is shifting. You want to tap hard enough that it actually kind of makes a little thump. And there it goes. Mine just went back into work. So that's called the Thymus Tap. So stop a minute and now scan through your body again and see how you feel. How's your temperature? Where's the tension? What do you feel? How's your mind? Is it calmed down and a little slower and thinking less in whirlwinds? Notice what's going on in your body.
I had a lot of pain in the back of my neck when we first started because, as you know, I don't find it comfortable to do live videos.
And how do you feel now?
Well, it's feeling better. Like I still have a bit of tension back there, but it's a lot less than it was when we started.
Awesome. See, we do it ourselves all the time. I use this tap probably 5 times a day, if not more. Anytime I start to feel a little stressed, I'll just sit there and start tapping like this, and my husband will go, so what are you stressed about? And I teach it to all my clients. I teach it to my students. I teach it to everybody. It's just such a simple way to kind of take the whirlwind and bring it down to a nice balanced swirl and cool things down. So just to see how it works again, I want you to do this. Think about something that's a little stressful. Think about something that happened today. Not a big monstrous problem, just a little something that's maybe somebody said something to you that didn't sit right, or maybe you got upset when you shouldn't have, or maybe something, just some little thing that happened to you today, and notice how it begins to affect you physically and emotionally, what your mind begins to do, where your emotions begin to go. Just kind of think about that stress for a minute. And now, hand on your sternum, tapping around. You can keep thinking about that for a little bit and just tap and see what happens.
And if you look down at how you're tapping, your hand should be going in a counterclockwise motion around the sternum. I don't know if it's backwards for people who are watching us. Sometimes it gets confusing doing these videos.
Yeah. That's why you want to start with your right hand on your left chest and go up and away from it. And if you were a clock, if your body was the clock and this was the hands of the clock, they would be going backwards, counterclockwise. And just do that for a minute and see what happens to that little stress that you were thinking about. It won't change the fact that it happened, but it'll change how you react to it. So this is a trick we want you to practice quite a few times over the next day. Every time you feel your mind's just starting to run, or you feel your emotions are starting to come up, or you just feel pain or tension somewhere, just do the tap. Practice, 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 and it'll get easier and better, and your body will respond to it faster. We want your thymus functioning because that's what keeps your body coordinated. One of the things that you're going to do in the next 24 hours is your homework. And in this homework, you're going to actually have to think about some areas where maybe you're not doing so well. Cheryl's going to explain the homework in just a second. But before we get into that, I want you to remember you've got this Thymus Tap as a tool so that as you're starting to do that homework, if you start to feel yourself ramping up or you start to feel yourself resisting, you start to feel some, not so good about yourself, tap it away. And you might want to do it after each one of your questions and tap it away until you feel better. And when you're all finished, do some more tapping so you leave yourself in a balanced, happy spot and don't leave yourself mulling over the things you might have discovered in your homework assignment.
So speaking of homework, one of the things you're going to be getting in your email is this sheet. And at the top, it talks about what are the beliefs related to a value that you hold, but your actions are in conflict. So you're not acting in a way that's congruent with what you say you believe. You're going to look at some of the example scenarios and then think about your own life. So first, you're going to name a belief, identify what value you think supports it, then look at your actions in relation to that belief and see if you have a disconnect between the two of them. And then what we want you to do is to identify what do you think is the emotional driver that is helping you to sabotage yourself in that area. So we have two examples there to give you an idea of how this works. So the first belief might be that you believe that dinner should be a happy time with all the family coming together around the family dinner table, having a wonderful time, sharing about their day. And the value behind that that's being expressed is that spending time with the family and connecting with kids is a really good thing. However, in real life, you might be booking sports events for the kids or doing other activities that take you away from that and fracture that time. And the emotional driver behind that could be, if I don't put my kids into soccer, if I don't put my kids into hockey, or if I don't do art classes or piano or something, people are going to think I'm a terrible parent who doesn't look after their kids. The second one is, I should weigh X amount of pounds or kilos. And the value is, I want to be healthy. But your action is, I sit down at night and eat a bag of chips a couple of times a week. And the emotional driver could be, I'm bored, and food is a way to stuff my emotions or to occupy myself so that I'm not bored anymore. So we chose those two scenarios because these are ones that a lot of women can identify with. But what we would like you to do is come up with a couple more of your own. Look at your life and do a fearless analysis of what you're actually doing and what you wish you should be doing, and see if you can figure out what the emotional driver is behind your sabotage.
If you're having trouble identifying some of those thoughts, the first concept is the belief. And the way to kind of get to that belief is think about the things where you think, I should do this. Where you think you should do that, it's because you have a belief that something is important. And so figure out what that belief is. And these might be beliefs around yourself. They might be beliefs around your family. They might be beliefs around your faith community. They might be beliefs around food or career or pretty much anything. As women, we tend to have a lot of beliefs around family and kids where we should be doing something. And the more of those that you can identify and put down, the easier it will be for you to, over the long range, solve those and resolve them. And then for me, it's easier to do this exercise if I jump over to the action column and do the actions next. We have a belief we should do this, but what do we actually do? Mm-hmm. Or you might even start with, well, this is what I'm doing, which I know probably isn't very good. So what's the belief about what I should be doing? You can kind of go either way to get started on those. And then you need to spend some time thinking about, well, what is the value that drives this? What do I, on the subconscious internal, really want to achieve here? What is it that I'm actually trying to do? And it's usually a little bit different than either the action or the belief. And then the tough part is, what is the emotion that is driving the behavior you don't want? And that emotional driver is often buried quite deep in your subconscious. Sometimes it's very obvious, sometimes it's not. And often as you kind of identify a driver, it'll make sense for a while, and then it'll kind of peel away, and there'll be another layer below that. There might be another layer below that, and you'll eventually get down to some pretty deep stuff there. So go as far as you feel comfortable at this point, and remember, tap, 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 tap to keep your emotions calm and balanced while you do this. We don't want you putting yourself into a PTSD episode. Only go as far as you feel comfortable with it, and do lots of tapping, which will help you keep that calm. We're going to do some more exercises tomorrow that will also help you. And once you've done this homework, you can go into our group. If you're not a member of the group yet, you'll want to join our Reclaim Your Life coaching group. And in there, there'll be a thread for you to share one or two of these, whatever you feel comfortable with, and tell us what you're finding, and put down as much as you're comfortable with. So please be sure you do that and share with us. If you have any questions or comments about that, if you want some help with that, we will be checking into the group a number of times tomorrow, both Cheryl and I and Rachel, who is working with us. So if you put questions or things in there and would like some feedback or want some assistance in any way, please put that in the group, and we will be in there looking at it tomorrow and responding for you. So if you have any other questions, don't hesitate to get in there. Anything else you want to add to the homework, Cheryl?
Just that if you say I should a lot, there's usually guilt attached to that. So just be on the lookout for that one. I often tell my clients, stop shoulding on yourself.
Yes, that is a very important one. And this is just sort of the top layer of dealing with all these things. Tomorrow, we're going to take another layer at it. Obviously, we can't just share everything all at the same time. And I think we actually covered a lot of territory, and you've got a lot of things to think about tonight. And so we don't want to do a whole lot more. We're going to leave it here at this level, because you need to process that and you need to practice your tapping. And we'll come back at it tomorrow. But this is something that is a recurring theme through our 6-month coaching program. The Reclaim Your Life coaching program is a 6-month program. There's a weekly lesson. There's all kinds of things in there. There's a weekly live coaching group. There's a weekly energy balancing session. So lots of help to get you through all these things. And we have way more tools to share with you in those too. So think about, if you're really serious about transforming your life, if you're really serious about making the changes you've been thinking about for a long time, if you really don't like the way your life is now, there is a way forward. There is help, and we're happy to help you with that. Please pop comments or questions in the stream here or in the group. Either place, we'll be looking at those. And we will see you all tomorrow. Please invite your friends. They will, if they join now, they will get the replay, so they'll be able to see today's too. And remember, there is one free coaching slot to be won. Share it with at least 3 friends. Do your homework every day. Get in the groups and participate. And maybe you'll be the one that wins it.
Yes.
And we'll see you all same place tomorrow night, same time, and bring your friends with you. Thanks so much.
Bye for now.